Hey guys, what's up? It's Dean. Welcome to the Better Man podcast. Today we have a special in-person video version of this podcast thingy, and I'm joined by Drew Lynch, who is a famous comedian, amateur man-flow yogi, husband to squirrel lover, and I don't know what else to say. But if you look up Drew Lynch, he's a really cool guy, and he's quite funny. I've been to his shows, and yeah.
Thanks, buddy. I just asked that you plug the squirrel lover thing. I don't care about any of the other stuff. Mm-hmm. But thank you for having me, Dean. I'm a big fan of you, and I'm a big fan of doing podcasts on yoga blocks. That's how I do it.
We are attempting to sit in a way that helps our overall hip mobility.
Yeah.
So if you see us fidgeting, that's probably what's happening.
It's hard to do it, man. It's hard to sit on the floor with a guy for an hour, but that's what I hope to do every week.
My foot is already tingling. If that helps.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so cute that we're both tingling on the.
We're both tingling.
Losing circulation, but it's important to modify. That's what I've heard.
That's true. I do say that. So Drew and I became acquainted during the pandemic. Drew, I think you sought out some yoga on a website called YouTube.
That's right. I love that. Love that French site.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sought out yoga, and I was like, I want the mankind, and that's what I typed in. I was like, I want yoga, the mankind, and they were like, all right, I mean, Dean does it for others too, and I was like, I don't care. I'm such a freak. I'm so masculine. I'm so friggin'. Gosh, I'm just friggin' creatine. I don't know what men talk about, but that's what I am. No, I loved it. I loved how like personable you were with your videos, and you have like explanations for everything that you're doing. It doesn't feel like you have to get into like like you have alternate versions of everything. Like you have some where it's just flow state. You have some that are focused. I like that there were target muscle groups that you could find. And genuinely, we talked about this before we just started the pod, but you know, for me, the pandemic was a blessing, and finding your videos is a blessing because I enjoy working. Sometimes I don't think that I really know. I think I am impervious to all of those limitations when it comes to work because I love it so much. And yoga was just that thing that I needed and still need to be able to access those other things, those resets and the necessary balance that's required. And so being able to wake up every single day during the pandemic at 4 p.m. And do yoga. It was awesome. I actually did smoga. It's where I smoked weed and then did yoga. I don't smoke weed ever, but during the pandemic, we were all trying out different versions of ourselves. Like maybe I'm this person now. Maybe I make bread, or maybe I do pottery and then I put my bread in those pots that I make. But for me, my thing was like, oh, maybe I do drugs now, and so I would smoke and then get like real tingly in my body, kind of like how my foot is asleep right now.
Right,
but
right.
but I didn't do weed for this. You could though. You could go to like a doctor. You could go to like a medical doctor and be like, "Hey, my foot's asleep. Do you mind if I get that sweet strawberry Kush yum?" And he would say, "Yeah, for sure, brother." And then you would have drugs. But I don't do that. So I did during the pandemic. I smoked, and I got real in tune and touch with my body, and then did yoga with you, and it was awesome, and it was not at all romantic. So my wife she would come in from the living room. She'd be like, she'd walk in. She'd be like, breakfast is ready. I'm like, yeah, I'm with Dean right now. Please, no, please. Okay, this is super, super serious. So yeah, it's grateful. Very grateful for your videos. And I think our budding friendship has been over comedy, and your kid is adorable. And I chased that kid around a restaurant.
That was beautiful. Yeah, we went to breakfast together a couple months ago, and you went full play mode, and I think you chased him for a full 5 minutes. He wanted to run to the end of the hallway and back, and kept doing it. And
Oh yeah.
You didn't skip a beat. You just went with it. It was
Oh
great.
yeah, man. Oh yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. And also French restaurants are full of themselves, so you kind of need a toddler and adult to run around, really neutralize the setting.
The waitress hated you. Do you remember that?
Dude, if I could remember every waitress that hates me because I ask for, they don't like people who ask for tea. I know that for sure. When I think they think they're not getting tipped if someone asks for tea, and I have to overcompensate when I tip. I tip 40%, 30% because I look so young, and so like, who's this heathen coming off of a movie? And then I order tea, and they're like, well, now I'm just getting mixed signals. Only adults drink tea. Mm-hmm. So now I have to drink tea to show them that I'm an adult, and then I have to tip well to show them that I'm not some frugal degenerate. So
That sounds really tough.
it does.
Tough
God,
thing, yeah.
those are my struggles, and they manifest in my back, and that's why I do yoga now.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you could tell people. So like, we've hung out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We know that you've done manful yoga for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And your wife actually messaged me. I don't know if she was your wife at the time, fiance at the time.
Fiance.
She messaged me and she's like, hey, I think a really cool gift would be for you to come up with like a specialized yoga program or a workout for Drew, because he has unique needs, because he's a stand-up comedian. So he has these specific pains that, most of my content is like focused on people who work at a desk and they're sitting a lot and they have posture issues. So,
Yeah, Leo.
there's not a huge, as far as I know, there's not a huge market for stand-up comedians.
Definitely
Maybe that's something that I'm missing.
Well, I don't think it's a huge market, but I definitely think performers, like I think performers and stand-ups, actually you'd be surprised. There's a lot of comics who do yoga. I was just chatting with Tony Hinchcliffe last night at the Comedy Mothership Comedy Club that just opened, and he does yoga pretty much every week. So I think it's you might be surprised. It's kind of like I do a lot of yoga with a lot of comics in LA, and
Very popular,
and so I don't know if you don't have to necessarily look at it as like, oh, what's the market for it, but I do know that comics do.
That's cool to know.
Yeah.
And then I learned about you and that you were a comic, and I learned about you too. Melanie gave me like a little smile. I didn't want to neglect you. And I looked you up and I was like, oh wow, like Drew's kind of like a big deal.
Only kind of.
Yeah, kind of a big deal. And then I finally went and saw you a couple months ago. I was like, I'm going to see.
He's not a big deal.
see a friend of mine.
He's like, it's kind of a big deal, and then you went and saw me, and you were like, nah, never mind.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, truly, I went into this. I'm like, I know this guy. Like, I don't know if he's going to be like super funny, but like he's probably like pretty funny, right? Like he's good enough to be a professional comedian. And like I was laughing the entire time.
That's the goal.
Which it was great.
Thanks, buddy.
But anyways, going back to like what got you into a comedian, you were actually originally an actor, and you had some pretty, significant success as an actor. And then something happened, and I'm wondering if you could walk me through that.
Yeah, sure. I moved out to Los Angeles when I was really young, so I was 18. I knocked out my first year of college in high school, so I just thought, I'll take a year in LA, kind of shoot my shot there. And then in a year of being there, I landed some cool Disney gigs. I had a manager.
I still have to look these up, by the way.
Yeah, I had a manager, and I had an agent, and then I worked at a comedy club at the time, because a comedy club, it's always a night job, so you can have your days free to shoot, days free to audition, and you're in the periphery of kind of the acting world by just being around comics. There's a lot of crossover between those two worlds. So I thought it was perfect, and I loved comedy. I love stand-up. I always admired it as something that I would never do, just something that I could appreciate. And so they had a softball team, why? Why? I don't know why. I don't understand
What would
why.
have been a more appropriate team for for
Chess or bingo or karaoke, not something where grown adults get on a field and do something they haven't done in 20 years. And they're like, and expect to be good at it, expect for things to not go bad. It's the craziest thing. We underhand, like we toss it at point blank range to some dude who's going through a divorce and you think he's not gonna, yeah, Dave's wife is leaving him and you think that he's not gonna knock one right at your head. So basically I was playing shortstop and, again, like I played baseball as
because
a kid.
you're short.
Thanks, man. Yeah, if I could get more blocks, that would be helpful. I played shortstop, and a grounder hit me. A grounder took a bad hop and hit me in the throat, and I fell back and I hit my head on the ground, and I had a vocal contusion, a major concussion, which I later found out was a traumatic brain injury that didn't heal properly. That's why I had a lot of speech issues. I still sometimes have speech issues. I go to speech therapy every week, and honestly, yoga is something that has greatly helped. We talked about it earlier, but I think what's something that's really special about yoga is that you're able to access some of those traumatic mental those mental trying times that you had, or things that are stored. Like everybody kind of knows this, or at least they say it a lot in the holistic world. It's if you have some sort of mental pain or anguish, it stores itself in the body somewhere. And so rather than just taking DMT and sitting in a corner in the desert, I don't know, whatever. Like the point is instead of trying to access like what that mental thing is, yoga is such it's an actionable thing, and it's almost like rather than trying to address the trauma head on through the front door, you can go around the back of the house and try to figure out why those feelings come up through your body. And so for me, I've had a lot of anger. I've had a lot of I had anger over the fact that my career was deterred, or at least that particular career that I had grown up wanting to do, setting my sights on. Actually, still never left my sights on. I'd still love to do acting. I was very angry that I had all these I had all this representation and had some good momentum in Los Angeles, and then no one wanted to represent me because I stuttered, and I didn't have control over I didn't have control over the functionality of my motor skills. In fact, to this day, I'm still figuring out why there's some lack of connection in the left side of my body, because that's where I got hit. That's where I still, all the way up the left side of my body, I still don't have that same level of control. And so when I got dropped and I wasn't represented, and I felt like I didn't have any other place to go, I started to do stand-up. I started to make fun of my situation, really make some self-deprecating jokes about it, because that's all you really can do. I mean, and it was a humanizing experience. It was one that was humbling, and I've grown a lot since then. Just in that oh God, he's writing right now. Fuck.
I'm writing down comedians and self-deprecation.
I lost him right now.
I think it's a cool topic to explore.
So basically I a few years after doing that, I was on the college scene and doing some stand-up gigs at college cafeterias, which is the dream. And then I started opening for Bo Burnham. Bo found...
oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he found some clips of mine online and was like, this guy's really funny. And then we started touring together, and then I opened for the late Ralphie May for a little while. And the year after that, I ended up getting on America's Got Talent, and then I made it all the way to the end and lost. I lost. And...
yeah, make sure you get all the cameras.
Yeah. I have no money. That was kind of the. Do
you get paid at all if you're on the show if you lose?
No. You get per diem, so you get like falafel,
Okay.
in New York. So that's cool. You street food. So, and it has its risks. Like there's certain secret spicy sauces that are like delicious, but at the same time, I would say one in five falafels you get, you're gonna have the backfire. If you're not gonna get to keep that inside you. So I lived in New York for 3 months doing that show, and I came in second place. I lost to a British ventriloquist, as you do, as one does. And yeah, it was a great show. It was a great experience because they told my story while at the same time letting me do stand up. And I think if you go back and see any of those clips, you'll see, my speech was so much worse. My hair was so much more lush. But yeah, that was that time.
Trade-offs. So like, I consider myself, so I don't know if you would, I'm talking to the audience now, but I don't know if you would consider this, but actually I realize that a lot of what I do is I'm an artist in a way. I create things. I'm a content creator.
Yeah.
It definitely has a goal, and it's backed by a lot of exercise science, and there's results. It's results oriented, but a lot of it is an art in a way. A lot of it is expression in a way. And something that I realize when I talk with other people who are also content creators is that you're able to kind of make sense of things that happen in your life through your art, through the content that you create. And for you, that's your shows or your comedy. So I'm wondering if you can speak to how performing has kind of helped you move from this place where I want to be an actor. Oh, I'm getting some traction here. I'm going to be an actor. Oh, I'm not going to be an actor the way that I thought I would be.
Yeah. I think the thing that I love most about stand-up is how singular it is. It's something that you can be fully in control of. And I think that in a way, that's what many art forms are starting to realize. Their direct relationship with what they create is all of them. So it's like, in a way, we're all getting good at wearing many hats. I just think stand-up has a backyard faceted version of that. It's like, yes, in addition to making the videos that we make to showcase our art, the process behind stand-up is very much, I'm going to write down this thought, I'm going to edit this thought, I'm going to figure out how I want to deliver this thought, and then I'm going to perform it. So that, from start to finish, there is write, edit, direct, perform. So you're kind of doing all of these things, and then when you want to layer it on to how it goes, how it ends up, you end up shooting it or producing something from it, and that the process starts all over again, where you edit the direction of that video and figure out how you want something to swish. That's the direct. And so, I think what's really cool about the time that we're in with the internet and with so many people finding ways to express themselves is, in one way it can saturate a place, but in another way, if you find it to be organic to you or unique to your process, people will resonate with that. And what I love most about stand-up is that I really enjoy the editing component. I don't ever get to tell a lot of people this, but my injury taught me how to write. It taught me word economy. It taught me that every single word matters, and that the last 2 words or 3 words or 1 word of a sentence can, if you change it, it can change the whole context of what the initial part of the thing is you were saying. So I think it was a blessing in that it taught me how to write, while at the same time teaching me how to be human about this very difficult or trying experience. So, I don't know, and I think that's why we were talking about this before the show as well, but I think that's why my frequency is just a little bit different than a lot of other comics. I think a lot of comics, their frequency level is, why is this funny? I want to make this funny. And I don't always think that way. I'm very much a technician. I want to know why something works or how it came to be, understand it. I want to ask questions about it. Why is it why is it painful? What's the source of why that's good? Why is it bad? I ask a lot of questions and I want to know. My first instinct isn't to always be like, oh, let me make this funny. So I think you asked me, you asked me, you were like, when you do stand up or if you're a comedian, do you find it difficult to turn off? And it's like, to me, I find it difficult to turn on as far as that, oh, let me just write, because my resting state is to just analyze. So I think what's unique about comedy and comics is they all have their own individual approach to how they want to get someone to laugh or deliver or articulate their point. And you can get someone who's very different than me, a comedian who you could get in here who's all smiley and they're disarming. They're like, well, I don't think I'm the comedian who is like, oh, everybody's friend. I think I'm quiet. I'm introverted. I make certain observations about things that might have nothing to do with anything. So that to me is what's cool about not just content creators such as yourself, that things can be unique, but specifically to stand up, it's how they're able to how we're all able to share the same goal but approach it differently.
Yeah. So I didn't realize how much for you the creative process of coming up with stand-up performance. It seems like there's so much analysis in it, but that analysis is very therapeutic in a way. Like you're analyzing all of the questions that you ask yourself, that one would ask themselves in order to, how do I make sense of this thing that happened? What's my reaction to it? What does that say about me? Like you're doing all of these things as so I would assume that this is very helpful to your overall mental health.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, it's interesting. The mental health is becoming more and more of a thing that people are aware of and that they want to keep balanced and I think comedians especially, they come from a place of, it's almost always like from a place of pain, almost always. Some comedians they're just silly, funny people, and they're extroverts, and they come in and they're gregarious and they're just like, yeah, I was just kind of class clown, and that's why. But I think there's a lot of comics out there who they have some source of pain, so they understand.
I mean, first and foremost example, Robin Williams, right?
Yeah.
All right, guys, really quick here, I want to mention our featured brand of the week, and this is Sunlighten. If you've heard anything about saunas, they're really good for your health. They're good for relieving aches and pains. They're good for stress levels. They're good for your skin. These are things that I've personally noticed from using the sauna 2 to 3 times per week. I just get in it after I go for a walk or after my workout. I spend 20 to 30 minutes in it. And afterwards, my stress levels have gone down significantly. My body feels better. I've worked up a sweat. My skin looks better as a result of this too. So I'm a big fan. I've been able to really easily integrate this into my life. And it's something that I'm going to keep doing. So if you're interested in learning more, check out the link in the show notes. You can also go to manflowyoga.com/sunlighten, and you'll get up to $600 savings off your purchase of an infrared sauna unit from Sunlighten. All right, guys, hope you're enjoying the episode. Let's get back into it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he's someone who I think, he hit it very well, but at the same time, he was someone who was such a he was a dimensional actor as well. He was just so much more than a comedian. And I think the reason I struggle sometimes to fit in is because I'm trying to fit in. It's like you grow from feeling like you can't, like you don't belong, to hopefully and eventually appreciating the fact that you don't, because there's any number of comedians I've met where, like I said, their frequency level might be different, and they might, but I always wonder, I'm always like, why is it that I can't be that? Why is it that doesn't resonate with me? And in a different way, it's like, well, I have to learn to appreciate my strengths for what they are. And how that applies to yoga is like, when you get done with a session, you feel accomplished. I don't like using the word grounded because I think it's overused. I think it's tired, but what I want to articulate is that when you get done doing a yoga session, you feel like you're even closer to yourself. You know, you just feel like you're yourself now, and you're going into the day in the most confident or accomplished version of yourself, and finding your videos during the pandemic and waking up and just making that a routine let me get into the next thing that I was going to do that day, which was nothing because it was the pandemic. So I pretended like I was going to do something. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do yoga and I'm going to go to work.
Created some amazing content that ended up, I think it helped you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it definitely helped. I tried to tell you that it could not have come at a better time, the pandemic and your videos and the combination of those two things for me, because I was just working myself into the ground and not taking the proper precautionary steps, post-cautionary steps to try and heal many of the things that I'd never addressed, which to me, I've healed quite a lot from my injury physically, but it has led me to the realization that the less that I care about the way people feel about my speech, the less that I care, the less of an impact it has on the fluency of my speech. So it's just kind of this thing. It's like this catch-22 of like, the less I care about something, the better it is, and then when I care about it more, the worse it gets. So it's just this vicious cycle that you try to find that recipe in that mental physical balance. That's a big pillar for yoga. It's like mentally find this place, mentally find this thing, and use that as your mantra for this session, and have that hopefully get represented and manifested through that physical outlet, and have those two worlds meet. So it's very heady stuff, man.
Yeah. So how do you? Oh, by the way, every time Drew mentions Manful Yoga, he gets $1,000. So if he seems like he's saying it a lot, that's what we agreed upon before.
Pull up my W-9, Leo.
Before this.
Seriously, let's get this right now. I'll give you my email.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get your tax info before this is over.
Get this in writing, dude.
But I'm curious for you, like, what do you think it is about, what do you think it is about the way that you're doing yoga that allows you to go to that place where you're realizing, oh, this is what's bothering me, and I'm now, for you, it sounds like, you're very self-conscious of the way that you speak, especially if you're, always in front of an audience. Like for me, if I was self-conscious about my flexibility, and every time I recorded, I was like, people are going to be judging me because I'm not flexible enough. That would be very hard.
Yo, Dean is stacked. Just so everybody knows, I would like this to be on the record as well as the $1,000 thing. Is Dean is ripped, bro. You see Dean, like you guys see him on cameras right now, and like I'm sure he looks great. But in person, it's even like
it's just smaller clothes.
It's crazy.
I just wear small clothes.
That's what I'm saying, dude. But yeah, I don't know, because I stood next to him. It's like his veins have got veins. All right, he's just like, you know what I mean. He has two kids now, and he holds them like this, and he doesn't even like he breastfeeds. That's how strong he is. He could breastfeed. He doesn't, but he could breastfeed at the same time for two kids. But he doesn't produce milk.
My daughter thinks that I breastfeed sometimes. So she doesn't understand. She doesn't. She's rooting, and she'll go. Well,
that's because you got pecs, dude. You got chest. I've seen how many videos you do for chest and pecs and shoulder all this. I don't blame your daughter for trying to suckle at your pecs, dude. It's ridiculous, man.
Suckling at the pec.
Suckling at the pec, dude.
There's a new phrase.
The internet teat. Seriously, man. He's like the perfect amount of like chest hair, but also not. I'm a straight guy, man, but I'm just like, Dean, like, it's too much, dude. Like, it's way too much. You can't be like, I get it. You do yoga all the time, but you also look it, and that's frustrating. I was like, I think you see Dean, you're like, why should I do yoga? And then you look at Dean, you're like, oh, I mean, I guess you could just do all this from yoga. I met him, he's eating friggin' bean salad and quinoa with saffron flakes or whatever weird Austin crap you do out here. It's ridiculous, man. And it's upsetting. So my point of all this is Dean makes me mad, and I'm happy to be here. He's just, you guys see him on the camera adds 10 pounds, I think. I don't know. That's what I thought. And then I saw Dean, I was like, I don't know what the camera does for anybody else, but it's frustrating. So it's good. But anyway, yeah, love your videos, man.
There's another 1,000. Great job.
Leo,
And this,
write it down.
we have a tally board going.
Write it down, dude. Suckling at the peck of welfare. I'm gonna quit comedy. I don't need to. I'm gonna retire off of this gas station money, dude. You know what I mean? Dean scratch offs. Oh, I complimented him again. Bingo. Suck it.
Which all leads me to the question.
Yep.
What do you think it was about doing yoga that allowed you to really question some of the things that were bothering you?
Well, I'd done yoga before. I'd done hot yoga before, and I think it was always like when the pandemic, when that happened, obviously yoga studios were the first thing to shut down. It was like yoga studios, obviously, you can't be hot breathing on people in close quarters and downward dog facing the people's face. You don't know what's a face and what's a booty, and it's crazy, dude. Things get crazy in hot flow yoga co-eds. So when that shut down, I was like, I knew that I see. Here's the thing: is that like I had a personal trainer in 2019, and I looked really good, but I felt terrible. Like I just wasn't taking care of I wasn't going back and healing the proper things and using those muscle groups correctly. So, I think, it's a big thing that you talk about is it's not just like the flexibility, it's building strength at the same time. So it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing what we're able to do with just our body weight, like it's like if you hold something long enough, and the key is to try and be flexible as well as build strength. It can drastically change. There's some confidence in that. There's some confidence in the fact that you can sit or you can stand or you can for a endless amount of time because of the training that you're able to do. So,
Do you think there was something? So, like you talk about combining flexibility and strength, and for me, when you're talking about going through the back door to kind of to analyze things,
accessing the trauma that way,
access the trauma. Was it because you were actually being still for a while? Was it because you were breathing? Was it because you were focusing on your body and maybe you did a pose and you were like, oh, all my trauma is right there in my hip flexor,
Yeah. I do think that. I do think, for me, I got injured on the left side of my body. And so you have to do this thing with injuries where you almost have to lie to yourself to get back to the truth. And that sounds so like foo-foo, but I just mean like the truth was that I got hurt, but also the truth was that you can get back to where you want to get back to so long as you start to implement that as your mantra, as you start to implement that as your what's the word that they like at the start of your every yoga session? Yeah, your intention, that's the word.
Yes.
And so like when I say you have to like lie to yourself to get back to the truth is you got hurt, and the truth can also be that you can get back to 100%, but you'll never get there if you always believe that you are stuck and that something doesn't work. And that is where I struggle the most. The reality, I'm a very empirical, evident person. So if something is right there in front of me, as an example, that's what I believe. I have a difficult time believing something that I can't see. And that's where other people like like my wife is a great example of that. She's someone who like she believes something before she sees it. Like she just has that inner stillness where it's just like I can just believe something, and it's like for me, I need a solid track. I need a solid track record. I need traction and proofs and examples. I want to see all of them. I analyze, and if the reality is every day I wake up and I have a difficult time speaking and I have a difficult time using the left side of my body, that's what I see. That's what I believe. And so the fallacy is that you are in that state permanently and that it's unchanged. But just because that's what's current doesn't necessarily mean that that's what is permanent. And I guess I can't really remember my I guess my point was just that I every day when I do yoga, it would teach me that no, you can use that side. Like there is proof in, and there's it's evident that can be accessed and that it can be used. So just find a way to teach yourself or believe in yourself through the physical act of doing this, that you can get back to 100%. So that's what's hard. And I think like it's amazing when you see someone bounce back from an injury, especially like, you put a lot of emphasis on like knee. I mean, protecting the knees is so important. Like it's important for everybody, but like if you have something that happens here, it's a hard thing to come back from. If you have a meniscus or an ACL or any of that, it's a hard thing to come back from. And I think how quickly people heal is how quickly they are able to convince themselves or believe that they are basically already back to that. So it's like you almost have, like I said, the mind is a powerful thing, and you have to teach it you have to trick itself. And that's what's so frustrating is like you are the computer, but you're also the hacker.
Yeah. So what I'm getting from this, so your injury was such a strong part of your belief system that you needed something. No, not that you needed something, but you doing manful yoga every day, or let's not even say it was manful yoga, it's you just moving and like exercising the left side of your body every day was something that helped you, on a daily basis say, no, look, there's proof that this is the opposite. What's also, intriguing to me is that this injury happened in what year?
2011.
2011.
2011 or 2012? 2011. I think it was 2011. 2010. 2010. Hang on. And then 2000. I think it was 2011 is when it happened. Yeah. So
even, 8 years ago at this point, it's still something that is so strongly part of your mind.
Yeah.
Which just goes to show, the power of your beliefs that you have on you. And also going into what you were saying about recovering from injury, I used to think that, I thought that because I was healthy, that I would, I'd go to let's say I went to the doctor or something, or, well, I had COVID. Let's say I had COVID. And they were like, well, it'll take 5 days to recover. And then, it'll take 5 days for the fever to pass or whatever. And then after that, 2-week recovery. I'm like, oh, well, I'm really healthy, so it's going to take me 3 days. And I think about other injuries where, let's say it's a 6-week injury for like this specific break is a 6-week injury for this bone to heal. And I thought like, oh, I'm really healthy, so it'll take less time than that. And what I have realized, or what I have learned through anecdotal experience just from talking to other people, is that more important than your physical well-being is the strength of your mind to believe that you are recovering more quickly, or to have a positive mindset. I had a friend who had a very serious longboarding accident. His name is Chris Bachwood. He's a former lacrosse player. He lived here in Austin for a while, but he had this really serious accident, and he could barely focus. And his mom went to the hospital and like helped him meditate and helped him, and he recovered way more quickly than anyone thought that he could, because he was focusing specifically on his mind. And so I think this is like a truly under explored area of recovery, and it's kind of cool to hear about, you know, your experience with. I don't know if that all meshes together perfectly,
No, I think
but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I think it does. I think that like the spirituality component is the hacking component of the mental. So that's to me what spirituality is, because people talk about the three spirituality, spiritual, physical, mental, right? That's what they talk about. And I think the spiritual is that awareness of those other two. That's what I think that it is. And that extends itself to whatever religion or whatever your belief, or even if it's not. It can still be. It's like a state of not mind. That's what it is. You know, we talk about the state of mind. Okay, that's mental. But if you have that awareness of what that thing is and what you're capable of, and that belief system, just like with your friend, that's all spiritual. That's all trying to look and believe and attain things that. They have to be supernatural, because they're not here right now. The truth is that they're not here right now. But when you pull that back and you look at that on a larger scale, that's basically what a dream is. That's basically what a career is. That's basically what you do, and I guess to some extent what I do. It's you're inventing an idea, or you're executing an idea from which you just pulled out of whatever. And so, man, some of the most inspiring people I've ever met are people who are just they're relentless in their optimism. I think I'm relentless in my execution, but I don't think I'm necessarily as relentless in my optimism. And that is that's that unbreakable spiritual hindsight or foresight. Sometimes it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. So, and like I said, I'm just such a tangible, real individual. And I think like, I could be completely wrong here, and this could be something that's like controversial, but I think maybe a lot of men are like that. I think men are very like mechanical, sort of, I see it, this is what I do, you know. And then I think women have the ability, or maybe they're more easily accessed to that ability to have that optimism, or that sort of relentless spiritual vision or plan, you know. And at least in my experience, that I think is a hefty balance between my wife and I, in that how opposite we are. And I have a great appreciation for it. So in there, but you know, I just think that, I don't know, like I just think that there's something to be learned from people who are able to do that, and maybe it's just because the influence from my dad, my brother, my uncles, they're all very just like, well, this is the way it is. I see this, that means this. They're just very logic-based people and I think that has its strengths, but I also think it greatly has its limitations.
Absolutely.
If you see something and then it is, and then and there's no room for growth in that, because you are, I wouldn't say content with what that result is, but you are it is made clear, and I think people like philosophers and poets and civil activists, like all they see is in that formula is where it is. What if it's seen in a different way, or what if there's more to it? That's just crazy, man. It's crazy to try and think that way. So that's that spiritual component that I think, you know, on a scale like yoga, where it applies.
Yeah. So there was I actually just had a podcast interview. And by the way, I want to answer a quick story, because I thought this was funny. During your show, Drew is super interactive with his audience during his shows. So, you know, he doesn't have just a prepared script that he goes out and performs every time. He actually involves the audience, and he'll bring back jokes that he put in earlier in the show. And I remember one time you were interacting with a guy, and you were specifically calling him out for being like very matter of fact, straight. Like, you're just like my family. Like, yeah, that's a fact. Yeah, this is it. And I remember you saying that. And I just had a podcast interview earlier, and we were talking about the difference between people who are like that versus people who are not. I don't know if it's differences in personalities, but there's a cognitive level where like it has to be like analyzed and thought about and logical. And there's a somatic level, which is more subconscious. And the people who are who can perceive things more on a somatic level are able to access their emotions and understand them better than somebody who is only looking at things from a cognitive basis, where they are limiting their understanding. They're limiting their understanding of things because of their perceived lack of emotion, when really they're more emotional. And I think I'm losing people because I don't truly understand what I'm talking about now.
No, but it's not something. No, I don't think you're losing people. I just think it's something that's hard to be understood because it's inherently a catch-22. The thing that is built, like you can't call something a belief system I mean, you can call it a belief system, but if the system's expression is purely based on just existing, there's not much belief in that because it's real. You know what I mean? Like that, you can only believe what it is that you see. Obviously, I mean that's the most obvious statement I think anybody could make, right? If this is here, then this is here. That's the most basic rubric for a proof, right? So there's not much belief beyond that. In like we were talking about your room for what could be subconscious or what could be more. So. You look at these great leaders who, like even somebody like Steve Jobs, like, he was someone who he saw something for what it was, and then he saw something for what else it could be. Or even somebody like, Walt Disney, seeing something for what it was, but seeing something for what it could be. And that, I think, is more of a belief system because there's the idea that there is a third component past. If this is here, then this is here. Well, what's that third part? Well, what if it's there? What if it's not this? What if it's more, So I think for the process of yoga and how I can relate it to the process of stand-up, a lot of people, they'll say like, I want to get into stand-up, but I just don't know how to start. And I think a great place to start is by asking yourself questions and asking a set of questions that are the thing that you want to talk about. And that's a good way to start getting to write. Most people will sit down and they'll write and they'll be like, what do I think is funny about this? And I don't, or how do I make this funny? And I just think that that's such a difficult process to try and penetrate because you're just like, well, I guess that could be funny about it. But I think a good way to get to that is just by asking questions. Like, what's the nature of this thing? Where do I see this thing? Who uses this thing? Why do they use that thing? When would they not use that thing? What if that thing wasn't here? That's just a relationship to a noun, so this could be all super heady, but I'm trying to, I guess, just kind of bridge the gap or maybe just connect with how that applies to me and what it is that I do versus, you and what it is that you do.
Got it. So when you also mentioned that, when you started doing yoga around this time period, 2019, you also realized that you were doing too much. You were doing too many shows, you said?
Yeah, I did. I was gone over like 220 days of the year that year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was too much.
So when you realized that, what were some, did you make some, other than just reducing the amount of days that you were touring, what were some changes that you made and when you realized like, hey, I feel like I'm doing too much? And also, was there something like what brought you to that realization that like, okay, I'm doing too much?
The pandemic. That's it.
Yeah.
It was an act of intervention, and if that's divinity or whatever, or if that's just bat soup, whatever you see, I think that I would have probably never stopped, and it probably would have led to more complications physically. I needed to be able, I needed someone or something to tell me no and tell me that something wasn't possible in order for me to realize and accept the power of no and of not being able to do something. So it's clear that I was running from something, and and I mean, you can go back and even listen to videos. I think I won't, because I can't stand listening or seeing myself because I have imposter syndrome. But if you go back and you hear or see videos or anything from me in 2019, like I think my stutter was even worse then, and it's like, there's just so much power in knowing your limits and knowing that's not going to serve you. And I was saying yes to everything in 2019 and 2018, all the years of my career. I was saying yes to everything, not just to get to the next level of my career, but also to try and validate why I was here in the first place and why this injury happened. And I did the same thing on America's Got Talent. I never wanted to win the show until I got to the end. I didn't want to win it. I was just excited to be there, and then I just kept advancing. And then when it became clear that I could win it, then all of a sudden my it's not selfishness. It's just I realized that I had this deep-seated insecurity. I didn't realize this at the time. I realize it now, but I had this deep-seated insecurity to use some sort of physical outcome, like winning a competition through stand-up, where I talk about my stutter, as a means to an end, as a means to validate why this all happened, because I needed that. And I kind of carried that through till 2019, and still a part of me carries that to right now, is using those external goals, or those quantitative benchmarks, to validate everything leading up to this point. And so the pandemic was just this excellent, like, you can't do this anymore. You can't perform. You have to sit and spend some time healing and figuring out why you are this way. And I think speech therapy does the same thing. Like I've gotten to the place now where my speech therapist and we just talk. We'll just talk about something. And before, it used to be just like exercises. Like, it used to be like, here's some note cards, here's some things, right? Talk about this. Like, you practice this. And then I'll be talking to her, and it'll be whatever, banal things, just mundane. And then I'll stutter, and then she'll talk about, well, let's talk about why. Like, what happened there? What is it that you thought there? And so that's where this complicated level of speech therapy, where it's like, if that particular thing is causing you to stutter, let's figure out why that is. And so, in the same way that applies to what we're talking about here, it is trying to access that physical representation through what is emotionally hindering you. And so we're all kind of doing the same thing. Like, every version of what we're trying to do through a remedial practice, it's trying to accomplish the same thing. Like, if you go to a float tank or a sound bath, or you go to chiropractor, or you get massages, or you go to physical therapy, or you do yoga or acupuncture, we're all trying to access that same thing, which is, what is that pain point that we can try to go through the back of the house to find, to get to the nucleus of. And I've tried all those things that I just listed to come to the same conclusion, which is that it's inside me. I have to figure that out. And by having the pandemic happen and discover just that time where I get to just sit, literally just you on the screen, me and my mat. I'm gonna get a new one. I get a Manflow yoga mat today. That's exciting. It's not even for doing the podcast. Dean is just like, I make so much money. You can just have this.
Well, I'm gonna deduct it from the $1,000 per mention that I give you. So
I know that's gonna set me back. I know these were worth a few G's.
Yeah.
So yeah, that to me is what the value of that lesson was.
Well, that's so striking to me, because I I mentioned the interview I just did with somebody else, but something that we were talking about was he was a competitive lifter, and for him, he thought that if I just win this competition, then I'll feel like the way that I want to feel. And for him, being strong was a way of ultimately being strong for him was a value, something that he wanted to achieve. But ultimately, it was his way that he understood himself to be worthy of being loved. And so, in a very similar way, like your quest to validate, why this injury happened, you attempted to do that through external validation, right? You're like, if I win this competition, I can justify this happening.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's significant to me. I don't like to say it's interesting to me, because interesting is a word that you use when you don't have anything else to say about it. But it's significant to me that, despite all of the success that you had, seen as a comedian, that, you were still looking for this thing had to have happened for a reason, and I'm going to justify it with something.
Yeah. Seeking that. My leg is officially asleep, Dean.
Oh yeah. Do we want another block?
No.
Do you want a 5-minute stretching break?
No.
You want to do a pigeon?
That'd be embarrassing to stretch in front of you.
I've been moving the whole time.
Ah, man.
You want a
I've been holding it together, dude.
You've
I've
been
been
doing
doing
great.
core strength, dude. I've been just like, man, I need Dean to see that his work holds up. I guess in that example, I am the work. So.
Can I ask you another question?
Yeah, of course.
So so pandemic happens, comedy shows end.
Yep.
What changes did you notice? Like when you stopped touring as much as you did, what happened? What happened for you? How did your health change? How did your, dare I say, did your relationship improve? What other things happened?
Relationship improved greatly, not just with myself, but with my wife as well. We were, it just, I think we all, I don't know if we learned anything as a whole unit of the human race. I don't know if we did, because
I think we learned the importance of human connection to health.
I think we did, but I also think we kind of jumped right back in, like just I don't know. Maybe there were people who were anxious to get back. Mm-hmm. I was anxious to stay in. I was anxious for it to never end, because it felt like one giant sleepover, and it did feel like, I appreciate the friends that I don't get to see, and I appreciate those experiences that I don't get to have, but because I was so much in it that I didn't have that appreciation for it, because it's like with anything, when it's not there, that's when you learn you get the perspective of appreciating it. Mm-hmm. But I would say my relationship was excellent. My mental health was much better, because I wasn't committed to working or saying yes or following through with the things that I committed to months before. And that's the thing about touring. That's the thing about doing stand-up. I'm blessed to be able to do it. I'm thankful. I can make money doing this. I make money just with my ideas through the process of, like I said before, the process of having a thought, editing it, directing it, and then performing it. That is what I do to be able to support myself and my family. It's a miracle of a thing. But at the same time, when you tour, you have to accept dates months and months in advance. So you might be in a different mental headspace at the time that you accept it versus the time that you go to perform it or deliver it. So I had to, I was just grateful that I didn't have to follow through with it, because if I say yes to something, I will always follow through. I mean, it's probably a downfall. I mean,
it's a nice Midwestern thing.
Yeah.
We follow through on things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and so I think your word is everything. So and it is to yourself as well. And I don't want to be someone who's dishonest with anybody, and I don't want to be dishonest with myself either. So I think the thing that the pandemic taught me is it taught me just the power of no, and the power of not having something is actually it can be just as powerful by conserving that energy or using it to benefit something else that you actually care about, that you want to be giving your word to. Mm-hmm. So,
do you think if you continue to do that now that the pandemic's over?
I think I've definitely gotten better at it for sure. I definitely have gotten better at it, and I've definitely gotten better at recognizing a time that I like having an instinct and then acting on it. Because I so many times I'll say yes to something, or I used to say yes to something, and I was like, as soon as I said yes, I was like, you don't want to do this. This is silly. You don't want to do this.
Yeah. Do you have a process now for like when somebody asks you to do something? Do you like to say yes or no?
I think now I've just gotten to a place of being less emotional about it. I think when you're a business person and you run a business, just like you do, you make a series of decisions all day, and if you get emotional about those decisions, when you don't have to, then you're expending your energy where you don't need to, and so now I look at things very impersonally, and I think that. Because I appear indifferent, it can seem like I'm cold, or it can seem like I'm not appreciative or not thankful for that. But it teaches you this inner strength and your distilling process of what's going to serve me. Mm-hmm. And you can do that for so long where you're serving others and you're spreading yourself too thin in the process before you really just start to zero in on that voice. I think I think yoga does a great job of that. I think yoga, like that stillness, you're able to be like, you what?
There's no.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Yeah. I think yoga and man flow yoga specifically, and no other yoga but man flow, does that.
What do you think is one belief, habit, or mindset that has helped you the most in terms of your overall happiness?
Oh, Jesus. Mm-hmm.
You can't say manful yoga.
What? I was going to say $1,000 makes me happy, and however I can get that. No. I think something that's helped is recognizing, and I don't always do this well, but when I do it well, I'm at my best. Mm. And it's that when I can recognize that something is a challenge and that it's difficult and that it's just a test and that is what that is, no, then I'm never at, I'm nothing is better than me I'm at my best when I'm able to recognize that. If I get absorbed in the victim nature or the attack of how that could appear on me or towards me, by just simply by how difficult it is, that's when I'm at my worst. And there is no middle ground. So I am constantly throughout the day at my best and at my worst. And that's crazy. It's crazy to think about that there are those extremes, but I'm an extreme person. I think I'm an eccentric person, and I'm compulsive. So if I commit to something, I fully commit to it. And if I commit to the thought that this is bad, I'm terrible, and I can't get past this because this isn't a test. This is just a reflection of my lack of execution or talent or ability or whatever, then I'm at my worst. But if it's the opposite of that, where it's that rare time I can see it for what it is, which is just, all right, this is just a little bit challenging. It's an opportunity for me to get more creative or push even harder, then I win. And it is a balancing act. And it's like, if you can just make those binary decisions where you can just go, all right, I'm choosing to acknowledge this for what it is, but continue on, choosing this to acknowledge for what it is, but continue on, non-emotionally. That's been the process that I think I've discovered that best serves me.
Okay. What is your favorite color? Now
Blue.
I'm thinking
Blue, easy.
no green. Ah! It was Monty Python.
Oh
reference.
gosh. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you don't.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, I'm
never
sorry.
mind. I was stumbling for the next question.
That was so weird.
And I thought of
you and Mel both said the same. I was like, whoa, I don't know
we were
this.
clearly quoting something.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Back to the question I wanted to ask.
Yep.
What do you think is one thing that you do for your health that is undervalued or overlooked by others?
Oh, stretching. And I mean that, no, I mean that like genuinely at night, my process now at night, I'll come back from shows, I put on some tea, I get in the splits and I just write. That's what I do.
Oh, wow.
And you what, Mel? Every night, every night. And it calms me down. Cause that could so easily be filled with like a lot of other comedians it could be filled with drinking or partying or staying up late or binge eating. Like I have to find that actionable, healthy outlet, or else I just play the extremes, and it'll end up being drugs, or it'll end up being like addicted to like just like alcohol or whatever. So that to me is, I think, that's what I would say.
I hear that. And I usually don't insert my own experience in this section, but right now, being newborn dad, I don't have a ton of time to sleep. So my evening routine is not at all what it once was, but I still find myself, before I go to sleep, I make sure that I just sit in like a 90-90 out in the living room with all the lights off for like 3 or 4 minutes on both sides. And like, it's not, a lengthy process. I don't get to journal. There's not like a whole, 30-minute wind down bedtime routine.
Yeah.
But like just those few minutes of stretching makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So, all right. Next question. What is your most important activity for stress relief?
Man, it sounds so obvious to say working out, but I think that's what it is. I work out and then I'll have a wind down with some yoga, and then that helps.
Is it easy working out when you're traveling?
It is for me. I mean, it is for me. Travel is a big stressor. So, I don't know. I would say, yeah, working out. That's my answer.
What is the most stressful part of your life?
I think the most stressful part of my life is just me. It's just the pressure that I put on myself. It's the difference from when you work a job for when you work a career. I think I tell people this all the time. I think I'm a great employee. I don't think I'm a good employer to myself. I'm just like, I'm so diligent and dutiful to whatever it is that I need. And then as an employer to myself, I don't give myself a break. I just put myself through that stress and that pressure. And there's a part of me that really appreciates it. I do appreciate how hard I can be on myself because I produce results.
Yeah, you wouldn't be where you were if you probably weren't as hard on yourself as you are.
Right. So it's just about, like we've been talking about, it's just about that balance of, not abusing that, not abusing yourself, and being okay with some just being okay with it.
Learning it's enough,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really hard. That's a big deal. I struggle immensely with feeling like I'm enough, being enough.
Yeah.
And that's probably in all facets of my life.
Yeah, I hear that. And then the last question: what do you think is the biggest challenge facing men and their well-being today?
Man, that's tough. It's tough to really break it down into it's tough to break it down into what I think is hard for men, because I don't think I consider myself to be a very I'm very uncomfortable when there's a group of guys who are like, yeah, and I walk in, I've got such I don't think I have beta energy. I think I have gamma energy where I'm not right guys. I'm not that guy. I'm like, man, it's 140 days till the next solar moon, and people are like, what? I'm like, well, I don't know, just thought that you should know that. And they're like, okay. And I don't feel bad about the things that I think, but I don't know. I think a struggle for men is at least here. I'll say this from my experience with my dad, my brother. They're even more black and white in terms of how logical and how binary many of their decisions are. I attribute so many of my strengths to my dad's ability to be business minded and approach something in a very analytical way. And I think, because of the influence of just what I wanted to do growing up, performing I think I've watched my dad and I've watched my brother struggle to be themselves because of the typical mold that they feel they must fulfill by being a man. And
so there's this standard ideal of what a man should be, and it sounds like you see their struggle with it, but even in you just answered this, but it sounds like you struggle with the same thing because you feel uncomfortable being with a group of men.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I feel, well, it's not necessarily that this is where I've gotten better at forgiving myself, is it's not necessarily that I do feel uncomfortable, but beating myself up for feeling uncomfortable has become less and less. And that has actually given me more security in the fact that in being a man. And I can look at a group of my friends and they all have different strengths. And I appreciate those strengths for what they are. And I think the maturity in finding the maturity in my ability to see those strengths and appreciate them for what they are, unadulterated, there's no jealousy, there's no envy. That to me is what's given me the ultimate security as a man, is being well, listen, these are my strengths. And even something that I'm describing right now is a strength. My ability to be able to see what other people do well and appreciate those things, that's the teacher in me. That's this older sort of seasoned outlook, rather than having this younger sort of competitive, So that to me has really, I think, made me sit back and feel more grounded and more secure as a man, is that I can have appreciation for other people who happen to be men sometimes and in their strengths. So to answer the question of what hinders, it's just, I think it's just guys need to just, we live in a time where we're very accepting of all, well, not all, but we're getting to be in a place where a lot of people are accepting whatever, any eccentricities, every person is willing to, at least be more willing to accept than they were 10, 15, 20, 40, 100 years ago. So leaning into why it is that you're different, and not fitting whatever that mold is, making something work for you is how you have to do it. And if you're somebody at all like me, where you're different or you're neurotic or when I have meetings now, like I'll go on a like if I have professional meetings with somebody I haven't met, I'll go on a walk. I'll have stretch parties with my team. Like if I have like my editor or my assistant come over, like we'll have like literally have like stretch parties. It's random and it's weird, but to me it works, and it's where I get my strength. So I have to be able to lean into who I am and what gives me joy. And if that's weird or that's seen as different, that's okay to me, because before I used to be so worried about being different and not fitting that mold, that now it's like I have a greater appreciation because everybody else appears to be the same.
Yeah, guys, thanks for joining me for the Better Man podcast of this special video edition. This is Drew Lynch, famous comedian and black and white thinker, or that's not the right term I'm looking for. Eccentric and one or the other, binary. Yes. Anyways, I don't want to pigeonhole your description. I'm just gonna say comedian.
Thanks, buddy.
But I think that was a really cool conversation, and thank you for doing it.
Thanks
for being here.
Perfect.
And guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it inspires you to be a better man, and I'll see you on the next episode.
If you like that episode, check out this other one right here. I think you're really going to enjoy it. If you haven't subscribed, click this subscribe button over here, and you can listen to the full episodes on any major podcasting platform. Full details below in the description.